Assalamu alaikum. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. With God's name, the merciful benefactor, the merciful Redeemer, we witness that He is one, alone, has no other with Him in the run or rule of the universe that He created, except as servants of His. He says, none come to Him except as servants. We know that He has angels and men in His creation, and also jinn, and all the other things that are more distant from human life. He has created, and He is the creator and God of all of that. And He says, is it not for God, the creation and the command, that says that human beings, men, who want to take responsibility for the world should understand the logic that they themselves advocate. The rules of logic, of human logic, should establish for us that the God who created everything has the right to say how it is to be used, ordered, shared, etc. We believe, that brings us to the Quran now, we believe that the Quran is communication from the God that created everything. That God is eternal, existing without change in His nafs. I use the word nafs as a Quranic word because person is not exactly nafs. The way person is used is not exactly the way nafs is used. That God has not any change in His person, or in His nafs, I prefer, and He has never had a beginning and never has an ending. He is the same now as He has been always, and as He is now, He will always be. No change in Him. It is not for us to use our little brains or our little knowledge to try to question what God has revealed of Himself, doubting it or looking for other explanations or other ways of perceiving Him after He has revealed Himself, highly glorified as He. It is said in the Quran that Jesus Christ, peace be upon Him, when He will be answering before God regarding what His followers said of Him, being a God also, He will give this in His answer, along with other statements that He will give. He will give this: if I had done so, you would know, you would have known it. I know not what is in your nafs, but you know what is in my nafs. So if Jesus Christ, who's called in both the religions of Christianity and Islam, a spirit from God himself. Ruh, the spirit from God himself. And he himself, Jesus Christ, is saying in the Quran that I know not what is in the identity of God's essence, his nafs. Then why should we be fools to be trying to rack our brains to know what is in God's nafs? As advanced as our sciences are in the West and now in the world, the efforts of the scientists are efforts of many nationalities, the nationalities of the whole world now, not led by only Western people or Western minds. The effort in science is led by minds from all over the world. And the Asians and some others are advancing and becoming more and more important in the effort of science for the whole world. Not quite like it used to be, just Europe and America leading everything. Not that way anymore. But, so men, getting to the point, the best minds in science, if we had them right here today, present now, and I would ask them the question for us, do you have a map of all matter existing? Do you know the end of space, where it starts and stops? They would say no. They would have to say no to both questions. So if we don't even know how to understand and perceive and understand what God has done, we call this his works. We don't know the limit of it. We don't know where it starts and where it ends. Then why should we be racking our brains trying to know everything about God's nafs? That's what threw the Christians off in the Nicene debates, conferences, councils, they call them in history. That's what threw them off. They were trying to understand God's nafs. And they came up with certain conclusions that didn't satisfy all of them. They remained divided. But the majority imposed their thinking on the rest of the world, but not on all those that were to share in the decision. Because the Eastern Church right now differs with the Western Church. And there are different denominations of Christianity that differs with the popular idea about the nafs of God. So that's what I want to tell you first, because our perception of reality is great and have been very productive for human society, for man life in society, have been very productive because we of these advanced societies, these leading societies today, believe that man is not the highest order, that the divine order is the highest order, and over that order is God himself, his own nafs. We wouldn't have the conveniences, the transportation, the communication advances, the great advances in science. We would not have this beautiful, powerful, and advanced world in its sciences and industry, etc., and benefits to human life and comforts, if it had not been for God communicating his will to a human being. Because it is not those societies that did not receive this communication that have their nation with all of these great advances. It is those that received messages from God and have that communication that have realized all these great advantages. So God has proved his presence by rewarding those who accepted his communication and held on to it with the most advanced material world as well as the most advanced spiritual knowledge. Isn't that wonderful? You all got to wake up to modern day realities that support faith in the God and faith in his revelation. And as I told the sisters, this part is for both brothers and sisters, as I told the sisters, we are blessed. The Muslim world is in trouble. Their publics have been abandoned. Their leaders have abandoned their obligations to their publics. Their publics are used just for the benefit of the political entity and the commercial life. They are not included at all in God's covenant or in God's message to mankind. They're not included at all. Muhammad the prophet said that his nation would come under darkness, that his following, his ummah, would come under darkness. But he said, just as it was raised up by God the first time, it will be brought up again. That's what Muhammad the prophet promised. I believe with all my being, with all the life that's in me, I believe that that time is here now. And the place for that reawakening to the best of what God gave Muhammad to us through Muhammad is happening in America under the spiritual leadership of the son of Elijah Muhammad. That is my firm belief. And if you will believe half as much as I believe, we will be able to do in America what the Muslims were able to do in Arabia and in that world of that time. And we won't have to wait long to see it come about. Just as it happened for Muhammad the prophet in about 12 years or less, it will happen for us too in about 12 years or less. But in a much bigger way, because there are advances for transportation, advances for communication. We live in a much more equipped world for supporting the da'wah, the message, and the vision for Muslims on this earth. We have much more going for our task than they had in that time going for their task. So look, wake up and have faith that you have been selected for a great work. Why us? Why somebody else? If this is God's plan, you say, why us? I ask you, why somebody else?